How about Rod the Bod, everybody? Rod W. Bod. At Rodney
Hey,
Boyd. What's
Jamie, good
going on,
morning.
man?
23 days left, sir. 23 days to the magical day.
Well, I will tell you that the Greitens campaign, very, very happy. They're having an event today. In fact, I got it somewhere. I had it in my pocket somewhere. But anyway, yeah, they're having an event today, and I spoke to somebody from the campaign. They're very, very happy with the numbers so far.
Yeah, I mean, remember, he had a 4-week gap where he was polling fourth in the primary. He was able to close it. So if history is any sort of motivator for his camp, they've sort of been in this spot before. They think they have a playbook to sort of close the gap, and they're doing it. They believe that they're executing it well. You've seen a lot more negative ads up against the Democratic nominee Coster. They feel like his favorability numbers are going down. So I think they have a strategy, as you would expect from a former Navy SEAL, a strategy that they're executing, and they are happy. I think your intel and what they're telling you is absolutely consistent. What's interesting is we in Missouri, we're getting a lot of national attention because of the U.S. Senate race. And the polling is sort of saying Missouri voters are definitely, not in a political way, but independently thinking about what they want to do. For example, you have in parts of our state polls that show Mr. Trump leading significantly. And in some of those same polled areas, you come down the ticket, and today, and obviously Mr. Greitens wants to change this, but you come down the ticket, Trump's leading. There's a toss-up between, when I say toss-up, within the margin of error in the U.S. Senate race between our incumbent, Senator Blunt, challenger Kander. Coster in the same polled pool of people is leading, and you come down under Coster and you see, for example, Eric Schmidt, who is a Republican, who's leading. I mean, it's the voters in Missouri, when they're polled, they're not going, what we're not doing in this state is going straight down the ticket. People are looking at each person in the race, and they're making their decisions based on their own insights and opinions. And it's just interesting to see because it's creating a lot of chatter around what's going to happen in Missouri. And so these next 23 days, I think you're going to see a lot of resources. We saw a lot of resources expended in the last cycle, but a lot more invested in Missouri, trying to ask Missouri voters to take a second, third, fourth, 100th look at some of these candidates.
Well, I will tell you a story about my appearance at the St. Charles County GOP headquarters right off of 70 on Saturday, where we had a great turnout, a great crowd, and essentially the push was come on in, grab the signs for your favorite candidates, and take on off, but hang out with me, and we did that for a while, talked a little bit. And one of the things so you go into the office there, and it's lined with signs of all the candidates, whether it be congressional, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, blah, blah, blah. You have, of course, the Pence signs, everything else. But they're lined up against the wall. And more than a few people came in, and they would ask the folks who were who monitored the office there, which one of these supports Donald Trump and which one doesn't. And that's how they grabbed their signs. And people who didn't support Donald Trump, their signs stayed there. And I'm telling you, as God is my witness, that's what happened at the St. Charles County GOP headquarters. So these folks who keep on trying to trot out this idea that Trump hurts the down ballots, I don't know why they're doing that, whether it means they're just trying to raise more money and scare people. But the fact of the matter is, you will be more hurt if you don't support Trump than if you do. That's just the fact.
Well, and I can tell you that scenario is clearly playing out in Missouri. There are some folks that, going into different polling places, are only asking for Trump signs. I've talked to people from all over the state in the last couple of weeks, trying to get a sense of just where people are going. And there are some state reps and legislators that are saying, "Hey, man, in my area, it's predominantly Trump signs. People aren't even paying attention or asking for signs from other candidates." And that's sort of a consistent testament to the anger and the frustration with D.C. that people are now feeling like there's an alternative. But I think in Missouri, what you're indicating is probably spot on, that, you know, the Trump numbers in this particular state, it is not really manifesting itself in the polling in terms of coattails. If it were, then you would probably see Roy Blunt with a more commanding lead over Kander. So even in some of these strong Trump areas, people are not just saying, I'm going to support, when they're polled, I'm going to support all of the Republicans. So I think that, as these next 23 days play out, people are going to pay a lot more attention to the polling numbers to get a sense of how close they want to get to Mr. Trump in different counties in the state. And others are probably going to pay attention to the national polls. And I think that's what you're saying. But there's no doubt that in this state, Donald Trump is winning. I said this over the weekend, so people were asking, what I thought would come out of the next debate. And I said, look, I don't know. But I think that for the most part, many people have settled firmly where they're going to be. And if you're an independent today, it's because you want to be, not because you haven't seen enough information to make a decision. So I don't know that this next debate is going to have a big impact on a bunch of independents. I think people are kind of settled. I think it is the unknown forces that you're alluding to. There are a lot of people that don't get polled. You and I know there's millions of them. And so it's not that we should just take polls as the gospel and say, oh, this is the outcome. They're an indicator, and they have been wrong. They've been wrong in the last cycle, and I got a feeling that a lot of them are going to be off or wrong in their indications coming up in 23 days.
Boy, I have a big feeling of that too, Rod the Bod. Hey, can we follow up real briefly on, because we have the session opening soon, I guess technically soon, January, right? So
yes, sir.
We have this Stephen Roberts thing where I don't know where that story went, but it probably went the way of the groping stories. He was accused of rape. Even the Post-Dispatch basically took this woman's story hook, line, and sinker, and she wrote a letter to the House and said, protect me from this evil man. And where'd that story go? Because it sounded to me like, all these women were claiming that they were Cosby'd by him, but it never happened, or it never came to fruition.
Here, it's a good question. Factually, where we are is all the evidence that the police gathered, whatever it was, and I don't know, was turned over to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor's office has a duty to review all the evidence, do an investigation, and either true bill, meaning charge or not. Everything still sits today with no final decision within the circuit attorney's office. Now, they can make a decision, and they will, Jamie, that there's not enough evidence to bring charges, and that will close the matter out completely. And the contents of that letter would be moot. If they issue charges, which they still have time to do, as you know, sometimes prosecutors don't. With politically sensitive cases, they want to make sure that they give it all the time that they think they need to give whatever outcome that will have some political responses. So I think to answer your question, the evidence is right now being vetted by the circuit attorney's office. The circuit attorney's office will make their decision, and then we will know whether there is a charge that will be formally brought, or whether there's no true bill, no indictment, and the matter effectively legally is resolved at the criminal stage. Yeah,
well, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what happened, and you want to be able to make sure that the stories are all vetted. But boy, he got really hammered in the newspaper. It's amazing how careful some people are with some stories and how not careful they are. Like nowadays, just somebody making a charge becomes big news, and you can pretty much say anything about anyone and have the newspaper put you in the newspaper. As long as they don't like you, they'll go after you. I think that's interesting. Anyway, Rod the Bod, appreciate it as always. Of course, Insider Talk Sundays from noon to 1 here at FM News Talk 97.1, and also there are podcasts up on our website. So if you missed Sunday's show, you can always hear it now. Not now, but later. All right, not later, but I don't know. Keep listening, but with two ears maybe. At Rodney Boyd. Thanks, brother.